You reach for the light switch. You flip it up. Nothing happens. You tap your phone to check for a neighborhood outage, but there is no cellular signal. The screen just stares back at you. You assume it is a minor inconvenience, a blown transformer, a storm somewhere down the line. You expect the gentle hum of the refrigerator to return in a few hours, but it does not. The power is gone, and it will not come back for 30 days. Every wire, every grid, every battery across the entire globe has suddenly been drained of its charge. Before we dive into the terrifying reality of what happens next, if you enjoy learning how your body, your mind, and your world really work, subscribe now, because this channel breaks down complex things in simple ways. So, how fast would society actually collapse? The scary truth is that the answer is measured in hours, not weeks. To understand what happens when the electricity vanishes, we first have to understand what electricity actually is to us. It is not just a modern convenience. It is not just the thing that powers your television or charges your phone. It is the invisible nervous system of human civilization. Most people have a romanticized idea of a long-term blackout. They imagine a peaceful, rustic retreat. They picture themselves reading by candlelight, playing board games with their family, and enjoying a quiet break from the digital world. But this is a massive misconception. We do not just use electricity to see in the dark. We use it to move water. We use it to grow food. We use it to process transactions, pump fuel, and keep our hospitals running. Without it, the 21st century evaporates instantly. We would be violently thrust back into the 18th century, but with one major problem. We have absolutely none of the survival skills our ancestors had. The first 24 hours without power do not feel like the end of the world. They feel like a snow day, an unexpected break from reality. Most people experience a psychological phenomenon known as normalcy bias. This is the brain's way of keeping you calm in a crisis by convincing you that everything will be fine, because everything has always been fine before. You look out the window, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, everything looks completely normal. But beneath the surface, the dominoes are already starting to fall. Traffic lights go dark, causing massive gridlock in every major city on Earth. Supply trucks are trapped on the highways. The food in your refrigerator slowly begins to warm. And as the sun finally sets, a profound, heavy darkness swallows the world. The kind of absolute darkness modern humans are rarely exposed to. Back in the summer of 1977, a massive blackout hit New York City. It took only hours for widespread looting and chaos to begin. But that was just one city, and people knew the power would eventually return. In our scenario, the darkness is everywhere, and help is not coming. But here is where it gets interesting. The real danger of a blackout does not come from the dark. It comes from the faucet. You can survive for weeks without food, but you can only survive a few days without water. Most people assume that water comes from the earth, flows into a pipe, and magically appears in their sink. They forget about the massive, energy-hungry machines working silently underground. Modern municipal water systems rely entirely on massive electrical pumps to maintain pressure. The second the grid dies, those pumps stop turning. If you live in a high-rise apartment, your water stops flowing almost immediately. The residual pressure in the pipes will bleed out within hours. By day 3, a global thirst begins to set in. People will quickly drain their hot water heaters and the backs of their toilets. Then, they will venture outside. They will seek out rivers, lakes, and decorative fountains. And this is where the unseen biological clock starts ticking. Without electricity, wastewater treatment plants also fail. Raw sewage begins to back up into the streets and seep into the groundwater. Diseases like cholera and dysentery, which we mostly defeated over a century ago, would suddenly become the leading cause of death. And this is where most people get it wrong. When people think about surviving a disaster, they think about the canned food in their pantry. They rarely think about the complex web of logistics that put that food there in the first place. The modern world operates on a system called just-in-time delivery. Grocery stores do not have massive warehouses in the back filled with months of supplies. They only keep about 3 days' worth of inventory on the shelves. They rely on constant, daily deliveries from fleets of trucks. But trucks run on diesel, and gas station pumps run on electricity. Without power, the fuel stays trapped in underground tanks. The entire global supply chain freezes in its tracks. By day 7, the grocery stores have been stripped completely bare. Your neighbor's pantry is empty. Desperation replaces the normalcy bias. This brings us to a massive mid-script shift. The most dangerous element of a month-long blackout is not what happens to the machines, it is what happens inside the human mind. Around day 10, a profound psychological shift occurs across the population. The illusion of civilization completely shatters. When the stomach is full and the house is warm, human beings are highly cooperative. We obey laws, we respect property, and we help strangers. But starvation is a powerful biological override. It completely rewires human morality. The greatest threat to your survival is no longer the lack of water or the freezing night air. The greatest threat is the person living next door. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the deeper science of the brain. When resources are abundant, your brain operates primarily out of the prefrontal cortex. This is the highly evolved, logical part of your brain. It handles long-term planning, empathy, and moral reasoning. But when your body detects a severe threat to its survival, like prolonged starvation or extreme dehydration, the brain shifts control. It hands the steering wheel over to the amygdala. The amygdala is the ancient, primal, reptilian part of your brain. It does not care about morality. It does not care about social contracts or being polite. It only cares about keeping your physical body alive for one more day. Think of society as a tightly stretched rubber band. Electricity is the tension holding it in a perfect, rigid shape. It keeps everything organized and predictable. But when you snap that band, the tension is gone. Society violently recoils into its most primal, chaotic state. During this time, the sheer absence of artificial light also begins to alter our biology. For over a century, artificial light has suppressed our natural circadian rhythms. We stay up late staring at screens, tricking our brains into thinking it is always daytime. Without electricity, human biology resets. The moment the sun goes down, the brain is flooded with melatonin. People would be forced to sleep for 12 to 14 hours a day, exactly as our ancestors did during the winter months. But this sleep would not be restful. The silence of the modern city would be deafening. Without the constant white noise of traffic, refrigerators, and air conditioners, the nights would be terrifyingly quiet. The sound of a breaking branch or a shattering window miles away would echo clearly. A collective paranoia would grip the population. The psychological toll of absolute darkness, combined with starvation, would trigger a massive wave of sensory deprivation and anxiety. But that is only half the story. While humans are battling each other in the streets, a much more silent and deadly threat is unfolding behind locked doors. What happens to the things we built that require constant power to remain safe? Hospitals are the first to fall. They have backup diesel generators, but those are only designed to run for 48 to 72 hours. Once the diesel runs out, the life support machines go quiet. The ventilators stop breathing. The incubators in the neonatal wards grow cold. The physical consequences of a vanishing grid are immediate and brutal for the most vulnerable among us. Then, there is the ultimate terrifying consequence: the nuclear power plants. There are hundreds of nuclear reactors scattered across the globe. When the power grid fails, these plants are designed to automatically shut down. But even when a reactor is shut down, the nuclear fuel remains incredibly hot. It requires a constant, massive flow of cold water to keep it from melting down. This water is moved by massive electrical pumps. Just like the hospitals, nuclear plants have backup diesel generators to keep the water flowing. But after a week or two, those generators will run out of fuel. There are no trucks coming to refill them. Without power, the water in the spent fuel pools will begin to boil. Eventually, The water will evaporate entirely, exposing the highly radioactive rods to the open air. They will catch fire. Highly radioactive smoke will billow into the atmosphere, creating dozens of simultaneous Chernobyl-level disasters all around the world. The invisible threat of radiation would spread silently on the wind, poisoning land and water for thousands of years. As the 30-day mark approaches, the world would be unrecognizable. The physical infrastructure would still be standing. The buildings, the roads, and the bridges would all be perfectly intact, but the society that built them would be gone. Millions would have perished from disease, dehydration, starvation, and violence. The survivors would be deeply traumatized, their trust in their fellow humans permanently shattered. And then, just as suddenly as it vanished, the electricity returns. The streetlights flicker back to life. The refrigerators begin their gentle hum. The cell phone towers reboot. But this leaves us with a massive, unanswered question to think about. When the lights finally turn back on, who would we be? We have built a world entirely dependent on an invisible force we barely understand and cannot store in massive quantities. We consider ourselves the apex predators of this planet, the masters of our domain. Yet, our entire existence, our morality, our safety, and our civilization are completely reliant on a fragile copper thread. If we were forced to face the darkness for just 1 month, would we eagerly plug back into the system that made us so weak? Or would we realize that the modern world was just a fragile, temporary illusion all along?